It's 7:12 in the morning. Your keys are in your hand. Coffee still warm. Shoes half on while you stand near the front door doing the same routine you've done hundreds of times before. And your dog already knows. Before you even touch the handle, they are watching you. Not casually. Carefully. Their ears shift first. Then their body stiffens slightly. Maybe they follow you from room to room while you gather your things. Maybe they sit near the door pretending to stay calm. Or maybe they start pacing before you've even left. Then the moment finally comes. The latch clicks. The door closes. And within seconds, the entire emotional atmosphere changes. Your dog walks to the window. Or the door. Or your bedroom. Sometimes they whine softly. Sometimes they bark. Some dogs destroy pillows. Scratch doors. Pant heavily. Others do something quieter that owners almost never notice. They shut down completely. And most people think they understand why. They are bored. They just miss me. They need more toys. But behavioral neuroscience tells a completely different story. What your dog is experiencing when you leave may be one of the deepest survival responses ever formed between two different species. And most owners have no idea. Let's start with the boredom theory, because it sounds reasonable. You leave the house. Your dog has nothing to do. So they get restless. Simple. Except, here's the problem. If this were just boredom, enrichment should solve most of it. Food puzzles. Treats. Television. Windows. Chew toys. And for some dogs, those things help a little. But researchers consistently find that dogs with true separation distress often ignore all of it once their owner leaves. The toy they loved 5 minutes ago suddenly becomes irrelevant. The food remains untouched. The room becomes emotionally empty. So why? Why would a dog ignore stimulation, comfort, and even food just because one person disappeared? Because this isn't entertainment deprivation. It's attachment disruption. And those are completely different neurological experiences. A bored brain looks for stimulation. A distressed brain looks for safety. And this is where it gets deep. When your dog follows you to the door, or waits by the window long after you leave, they are not simply asking, "What do I do now?" They may be asking something much older. Where did my safe person go? In 2013, researchers at the University of Veterinary Medicine Vienna led by Lisa Horn conducted one of the most important dog attachment studies ever published. They used something called the Strange Situation Test. Originally, this test was designed to study attachment between human infants and caregivers. The methodology is deceptively simple. A dog enters a room with their owner. Then the owner leaves. Then returns. Researchers monitor stress signals, exploratory behavior, vocalization, and physiological regulation. And what they found was extraordinary. When owners left, dogs showed up to a 61% reduction in exploratory behavior. Cortisol levels rose significantly. Many dogs stopped engaging with the environment entirely. But when the owner returned, regulation happened almost immediately. Heart rate slowed. Movement normalized. Physical proximity was re-established. Not excitement. Relief. And this is the detail that changed how scientists viewed dogs forever. The emotional pattern closely mirrored attachment behavior seen in human children. The conclusion was profound. Dogs use humans as a secure base. The exact attachment framework observed between infants and parents. And this is where it gets deep. When your dog panics after you leave, they are performing the single most fundamental behavior in attachment psychology. They are reacting to the sudden absence of the individual their nervous system associates with safety. They are not being dramatic. They are not trying to punish you. They are telling you something incredibly important. You are part of how I regulate the world. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because this isn't just psychology. It's chemistry. In 2015, researchers at Asabu University led by Takefumi Kikusu published a landmark paper in Science examining human-dog bonding. They focused on oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is sometimes called the bonding hormone, but that description barely captures what it actually does. Oxytocin influences trust, attachment, emotional regulation, social memory, stress reduction. And what they found was remarkable. When dogs and humans made prolonged eye contact, oxytocin levels increased dramatically in both species. Up to 130% in dogs. And nearly 300% in humans. But the truly fascinating part was the feedback loop. More eye contact created more oxytocin. More oxytocin strengthened attachment. Stronger attachment increased social-seeking behavior. Meaning the bond reinforced itself biologically. And when researchers attempted the same experiment with wolves raised by humans, the loop largely disappeared. No significant hormonal reinforcement. No synchronized attachment response. This co-evolved specifically between dogs and humans over thousands of years. And now think about what happens every single day inside your home. Your dog watches you constantly. Your face. Your voice. Your movements. Your routines. Your presence becomes biologically regulating. So when you suddenly disappear, the chemistry changes too. Cortisol rises. Oxytocin drops. Stress systems activate. And this is where it gets deep. For some dogs, your absence doesn't feel like inconvenience. It feels like losing environmental stability itself. So when did this begin? The answer is basically from the beginning. More than 15,000 years ago, before agriculture, before written language, before cities, early wolves began approaching human camps. Not as hunters. Not as companions. But as opportunists. The least fearful wolves stayed closest to humans because proximity offered survival advantages. Food scraps. Warmth. Protection from larger predators. And over generations, something extraordinary happened. Humans unintentionally selected for emotional tolerance. Social bonding. Reduced aggression. Increased attentiveness to human behavior. Eventually, dogs evolved to read human emotional signals better than almost any other species on Earth. Even better, in some cases, than chimpanzees. At the Bonobo Castle burial site, archaeologists discovered a 14,000-year-old burial containing a human and dog intentionally laid beside one another. Analysis suggested the dog had survived severe illness, likely because humans cared for it over an extended period. These weren't just utility animals. They were emotionally significant. Family. And modern genetic studies from Harvard University and Uppsala University have identified gene variations in domestic dogs associated with hypersociability and attachment behaviors. Some of these regions overlap with genes associated with Williams syndrome in humans, a condition linked to unusually strong social trust and bonding. Meaning your dog's distress when you leave isn't random. It may be embedded into thousands of years of co-evolution. Your dog isn't malfunctioning. They are expressing one of the oldest emotional partnerships our species has ever created. Now, I want to tell you about a study that almost nobody talks about because the findings sound impossible at first. Researchers at University of Lincoln studying separation-related behaviors discovered something strange. Many dogs experiencing separation distress did not behave anxiously the entire time their owners were gone. Some showed panic immediately after departure. Then entered long periods of immobility. Quiet staring. Minimal movement. Almost like emotional shutdown. And yet owners frequently assumed these dogs were fine because the house was calm. But cortisol measurements suggested otherwise. Internally, the stress response remained elevated. So how is that possible? Because panic doesn't always look loud. Sometimes attachment distress looks like stillness. And this is where it gets deep. A nervous system overwhelmed for long enough often stops protesting outwardly. Not because safety returned, but because the brain shifted into conservation mode. Maybe your dog isn't calm when you leave. Maybe they're enduring it. And now the most fascinating part. In 2024, researchers examining dog-human synchronization continued building on studies from Linköping University and Stockholm University involving cortisol entrainment between dogs and owners. And what they found was extraordinary. Dogs and humans living in bonded relationships showed synchronized stress patterns over time. When owners experienced chronic stress, dogs often reflected similar cortisol changes. Their nervous systems were adapting together. This only happens within bonded pairs. Not strangers. Not unfamiliar animals. Relationships literally shape biology. Further HRV, heart rate variability, research suggests emotionally connected dogs can partially synchronize physiological regulation with their owners during close interaction. Which means your emotional state may directly influence your dog's nervous system more than you realize. And this is where it gets profound. When you leave the house, your dog isn't only noticing physical absence. Their biological environment changes. The regulating presence disappears. The emotional rhythm breaks. For some dogs, that feels less like solitude and more like survival uncertainty. There's one last thing I need to tell you. And it may be the most important part of this entire video. If your dog has always handled departures calmly and suddenly begins panicking when you leave, don't ignore it. Dogs are creatures of emotional pattern. When a deeply established behavior changes suddenly, there is always a reason. Sometimes it's environmental. A move. A new work schedule. Another animal. A new person in the house. Sometimes it's physical. Pain and illness often appear first through behavioral changes long before visible symptoms emerge. And sometimes it's cognitive. Research from University of California, Davis estimates that roughly 35% of dogs over age 11 show signs of canine cognitive dysfunction. Confusion increases attachment insecurity. Older dogs may panic more because the world itself feels less predictable. And remember, your dog does not have language. Behavior is communication. And when that communication changes, they may be telling you something important long before medicine can. So the next time you grab your keys and notice your dog watching you from across the room, remember what may actually be happening. Thousands of years of coevolution. A neurochemical attachment system built through oxytocin, cortisol regulation, and emotional synchronization. An ancient survival bond that transformed wolves into family. All pointing toward one extraordinary truth. To your dog, you are not just entertainment. You are emotional safety. And honestly, the science suggests that bond may be changing your nervous system too. If this changed how you see your dog, subscribe to Mindful Paws and leave a comment below. I want to know, what does your dog do the moment you pick up your keys? And if you want to understand why your dog stares at you in complete silence for minutes at a time, that's the next video. And the science behind it is even stranger than you'd expect.